How Patrick Morrisey Built a Political Network Around Access, Pressure, and Power. By Carrie Clendenning and read by an automated voice. At first glance, the political groups surrounding West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey do not seem like natural allies. Americans for Prosperity is tied to the Koch Stand Together network and promotes lower taxes, deregulation, and privatization-minded policy. Club for Growth and its School Freedom Fund are backed by wealthy conservative donors, including Jeff Yass and Richard Uihlein, and are known for enforcing school choice politics in Republican primaries. The Informed Consent Action Network, or ICAN, comes from the medical freedom movement and is closely associated with legal fights over vaccine policy. Then there are the other parts of Morrisey's political history. The Republican Attorneys General Association, pharmaceutical-industry donors, Washington lobbyists, super PACs, campaign consultants, and high-dollar donor retreats. These groups do not agree on everything. In some cases, they strongly disagree. But they all have a reason to want access to the governor. That is the key to understanding Morrisey's political operation. This is not evidence that every group is secretly coordinating with every other group. The public record does not prove that. Instead, it shows something more complicated. Different political networks can support the same governor for different reasons, using different methods to reach the same center of power. Some use campaign money. Others use lawsuits, lobbying, voter outreach, independent spending, or private fundraising events. Together, they form a system that gives powerful interests several different ways to influence state government. A network built around access. It is tempting to describe this simply as a dark money story. Dark money usually means political spending by groups that do not fully reveal where their money comes from. But dark money does not explain the full picture. The more useful phrase is political arbitrage. Building a system where groups that do not agree with each other can still invest in the same politician, because each group believes it can get something useful in return. For Americans for Prosperity, that may mean tax cuts, deregulation, and expansion of the Hope Scholarship Program. For Club for Growth, it may mean a governor who supports school choice and is willing to help reshape the Republican Party through primary elections. For medical freedom activists, it may mean a governor willing to challenge school vaccine rules and use the power of his office to support religious exemptions. For corporate donors and lobbying interests, it may mean access to an administration led by someone who understands the world of national political fundraising, attorney general associations, and Washington influence. These groups are not one team. They do not need to be. They only need to see Governor Morrisey as someone who can deliver something they value. The Policy Infrastructure, AFP. Americans for Prosperity. West Virginia is part of the National Americans for Prosperity and Stand Together network associated with Charles Koch. AFP is more than a campaign group. It brings staff, voter data, polling, door-knocking, policy research, mailers, digital ads, endorsements, and pressure campaigns. In West Virginia, AFP endorsed Morrisey in July 2023 and credited him with helping deliver income tax cuts and expansion of the Hope Scholarship Program. That kind of organization can shape politics before an election even begins. A campaign may last a few months. A permanent political organization can operate all year. It can collect voter information, build relationships with activists, train volunteers, contact lawmakers, and push for specific bills in the legislature. AFP's agenda in West Virginia includes expanding school choice, reducing or eliminating the state income tax, and repealing Certificate of Need laws that regulate the expansion of healthcare services. These policies are often presented as separate issues, but together they form a broader vision of government: lower taxes, fewer regulations, less public control, and more private market alternatives. Club for Growth and the School Choice Machine. Club for Growth is a separate national conservative donor network. It shares some of AFP's goals, especially on taxes, regulation, and school choice. But it has a different donor base, different political style, and a history of fighting with other Republican-aligned groups. Its specialty is primary elections. Club for Growth is willing to spend heavily against Republican incumbents it considers too moderate, too cautious, or insufficiently committed to its economic agenda. That makes it different from business groups that often prefer stable relationships with sitting lawmakers. In the 2024 governor's race, Club for Growth and allied groups promised more than $10 million to elect Morrisey. Club for Growth Action ultimately spent about $13.1 million, its largest investment ever in a governor's race. It also transferred at least $3.2 million to Black Bear PAC, a pro-Morrisey political committee. By 2026, the school choice issue had become a way to enforce loyalty inside the Republican Party. The Club for Growth-affiliated School Freedom Fund helped back candidates in Republican legislative primaries. Many of those candidates supported expanding the Hope Scholarship or opposed efforts to place tighter limits on it. Several sitting Republican lawmakers lost their primaries after outside groups targeted them. This matters because, in much of West Virginia, the Republican primary is the real election. In heavily Republican districts, winning the GOP nomination can be more important than winning in November. That gives outside groups enormous leverage. A legislator does not have to lose an election to feel the pressure. The threat of a well-funded challenger can affect how that legislator votes, what bills they support, and whether they are willing to question the governor's agenda. The Beverly, Massachusetts hub. The clearest evidence of overlap in Morrisey's political world comes from paperwork. Several committees tied to Morrisey or his allies use the same address in Beverly, Massachusetts. Bradley Crate, a major Republican campaign treasurer, runs Red Curve Solutions from that address. Records show Crate listed as treasurer for Morrisey's official campaign corporation, Morrisey 2024, Inc., and for Blue and Gold PAC. Crate also serves as treasurer or compliance official for major Trump political committees. Charles Gant, another well-known political treasurer, works from the same building through Bulldog Compliance. Records identify Gant as treasurer for Sugar Maple PAC, Black Bear PAC, West Virginia Prosperity Group, and earlier political committees that supported Morrisey. Gant has also served as treasurer for major Trump-aligned PACs. This does not prove illegal coordination. Campaigns, PACs, and nonprofits are allowed to hire the same accountants, lawyers, treasurers, vendors, and compliance firms. Shared professionals do not automatically mean two groups are secretly directing each other, but shared infrastructure is still meaningful. The same small set of professionals can create committees, manage reports, keep records, select vendors, process donations, and move political money through several organizations. To voters, the groups may look separate because each has its own name and logo. Behind the scenes, they may rely on the same few people and offices. That is why the people who sign the paperwork can matter as much as the people who appear in television ads. The PACs that police Republicans. Some of Morrisey's strongest political allies are not aimed at defeating Democrats. They are aimed at defeating other Republicans. Sugar Maple PAC is one of the most important examples. Chaired by former Delegate Jeff Foster and managed by Charles Gant, the PAC has raised most of its money from outside West Virginia. It spent heavily in 2026 Republican primaries, including races involving sitting lawmakers. Its purpose is not simply to help Republicans win general elections. It is to help a particular kind of Republican win primaries. The same is true of Make Liberty Win, the federal super PAC connected to Young Americans for Liberty, and of the State Freedom Caucus Network. These groups focus on pushing the Republican Party further right and punishing lawmakers they view as insufficiently conservative. This is one reason politics in West Virginia has become harder to understand through the old Republicans versus Democrats frame. The most important struggle is often inside the Republican Party. It is a fight between Republicans who want to preserve legislative independence and Republicans who want a more disciplined party, one that follows a governor's agenda, a school choice agenda, or a national conservative movement's agenda. When a group can spend six figures or more in a low-turnout primary, it can change the balance of power in the legislature. The Freedom Caucus lane. The West Virginia Freedom Caucus name has been used by more than one group. A newer version of the caucus was relaunched in 2026 as part of the National State Freedom Caucus Network. That national network was created by the Conservative Partnership Institute, a Trump-aligned organization founded by former Senator Jim DeMint. Its network includes prominent figures such as former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and attorney Cleta Mitchell. The State Freedom Caucus Network exists to organize lawmakers who want to move state legislatures farther right. Its focus includes party discipline, election rules, school choice, government spending, cultural issues, and fighting Republican leaders it sees as too moderate. The national organization has ties to Club for Growth through personnel and political history. Andy Roth, who has led the State Freedom Caucus Network, previously ran the Club for Growth Foundation. In West Virginia, the links matter because the same donor world can support school choice campaigns, primary challenges, PACs, Freedom Caucus organizing, and governor-aligned candidates. They may be legally separate organizations, but they can still reinforce one another. A PAC can run attack ads. A school choice group can support a challenger. A caucus can create ideological pressure. A national network can supply political training and messaging. A governor can lend public support to the same policy agenda. The result is a much stronger force than any one group acting alone. The vaccine policy contradiction. One of the most revealing parts of this story involves vaccines and pharmaceutical interests. Governor Morrisey's political career has long been connected to the Republican Attorneys General Association, also known as RAGA. RAGA has received major donations from pharmaceutical and corporate interests. Purdue Pharma gave RAGA more than $500,000 in 2016. The same cycle in which RAGA spent about $6.4 million supporting Morrisey's re-election as Attorney General. PHRMA, the pharmaceutical industry's main trade group, has also given money to RAGA. Morrisey himself worked as a Washington lobbyist before becoming Attorney General. His wife's lobbying firm has represented pharmaceutical and healthcare clients. Then, after becoming governor, Morrisey aligned with Aaron Siri and the Informed Consent Action Network, or ICAN. Siri is a prominent lawyer in the medical freedom movement and has represented anti-vaccine activist Del Bigtree and ICAN. Morrisey issued an executive order related to religious exemptions to school vaccine requirements and appeared publicly with Siri during a legal fight involving those rules. At first, those facts seem impossible to fit together. Why would someone with ties to pharmaceutical industry political networks also partner with activists whose public identity is built around challenging vaccine policy and pharmaceutical companies? The answer is not that the pharmaceutical industry and ICAN agree. They clearly do not. The better explanation is that the governor's network can make room for both. Different interests can use the same political office at different times for different goals. Pharmaceutical companies may seek business-friendly political relationships. Vaccine policy activists may seek executive support, legal backing, public attention, and pressure on state agencies. The ideology changes. The access remains valuable. The fundraiser and family connection. The most direct example of how access works is a series of high-dollar fundraising retreats for Team Morrisey. A 2026 invitation offered donors the chance to attend events in Napa Valley and at Stonewall Resort in West Virginia. Donation levels ranged from $2,500 to $25,000. The top host package included tickets to both events and special host events with the governor, along with activities such as wine dinners, golf, and a pontoon boat outing. The RSVP contact was George Shalhoub, Morrisey's longtime finance director and son-in-law. Shalhoub is married to Morrisey's stepdaughter, Julia. He has raised millions for Morrisey's political campaigns and works for MAD Global Strategy, a public affairs firm that serves clients in industries affected by government policy. There is nothing automatically illegal about political fundraising, donor retreats, or family members working in politics. Still, voters should understand the structure. A wealthy donor can spend $25,000 for special access to the governor. The person arranging that access is both a close family member and a professional political fundraiser. He also works for a public affairs firm with clients that may have business before government officials. That does not prove a deal was made, but it does show why transparency matters. The closer political fundraising, family relationships, public affairs, and government power become, the harder it is for voters to tell where public service ends and private influence begins. A political marketplace. The best way to understand the Morrisey network is as a political marketplace. Different groups bring different resources. AFP brings policy infrastructure, voter data, staff, and pressure campaigns. Club for Growth brings major donor money and primary election enforcement. School choice groups bring targeted campaigns against lawmakers who resist voucher expansion. PACs such as Sugar Maple bring independent spending against Republican incumbents. Freedom Caucus groups bring ideological pressure from the party's right flank. ICAN and Aaron Siri bring litigation, national media attention, and medical freedom organizing. Fundraising committees bring wealthy donors into private settings with the governor. Political compliance firms manage the paperwork and money behind the scenes. These networks do not need to agree on every issue. They do not need to meet in the same room. They do not need to operate as one legal organization. They only need to see the governor as useful. That is what makes this system powerful. It gives the same political center several ways to apply pressure: elections, lawsuits, lobbying, endorsements, fundraising, public messaging, and primary challenges. What West Virginians should watch. The most important lesson is simple. Do not stop at the name of a PAC or nonprofit. Ask who runs it. Ask where it is based. Ask who keeps its books. Ask which consultants and vendors it uses. Ask whether the same names appear in a governor's campaign, an outside PAC, a donor retreat, a lobbying firm, a state policy group, or a national political organization. And ask what the group wants from state government. A political group may call itself prosperity, freedom, parents, school choice, medical freedom, or West Virginia values. Those names may sound local and friendly, but the paperwork often tells a more complete story. It can reveal national donors, out-of-state consultants, shared treasurers, recurring vendors, and a small number of political operators moving from campaign to PAC to government office and back again. The central question is not whether every one of these groups shares the same ideology. They do not. The question is whether they share the same destination. In West Virginia, more and more often, that destination is access to the governor.